By August 2026, a series of legislative shifts will have turned Canada's freshwater into a tradable commodity for global private equity. While public attention remains on the cost of living, the basic chemistry of our environment is being financialized. This represents a structural rewrite of Canadian property law. The legal framework governing our watersheds is being altered to facilitate the private deployment of capital. Corporate entities are now using infrastructure loopholes to bypass regional oversight, securing control over entire watersheds through these new administrative conduits. This process effectively ends public ownership of the water running through your tap, shifting control from citizens to institutional shareholders. The foundation for this change began in late 2024 with Bill C-59. The federal government used this act to spin off the Canada Water Agency as a standalone entity, backed by a $650 million mandate. Central to this mandate is the National Freshwater Data Strategy, an administrative plan to standardize and digitize the metrics of every aquifer and river basin in the country. This data strategy serves a specific financial purpose. Standardizing volumetric metrics across jurisdictions eliminates the information gap, allowing private equity firms to model aquifer drawdowns and price water yields with precision. The National Freshwater Data Strategy functions as a prerequisite for market integration. Since a resource cannot be monetized without being measured, these standardized metrics allow institutional investors to treat watersheds as a quantifiable asset class. While federal agencies mapped the supply, provincial governments dismantled the local gatekeepers. In Ontario, statutes like Bill 23 and Bill 185 stripped the province's 36 conservation authorities of their historic mandates. These regional bodies are now legally prohibited from evaluating development or extraction applications based on pollution or land conservation. Their oversight is now restricted strictly to flood and erosion control. The province also eliminated upper-tier regional planning authority, decoupling coordinated watershed protection into hundreds of isolated, under-resourced local municipal councils. By narrowing reviews to flood hazards and limiting the influence of environmental scientists, the province removed the primary legal roadblocks to large-scale commercial water extraction. A practical example of this shift exists in Wellington County, Ontario, where a commercial bottling plant holds permits to extract 1.2 billion liters of groundwater every year. The mechanism for this is Environmental Registry Notice ERO 0250730. This specific loophole reclassifies corporate buyouts of high-volume extraction plants as simple administrative renewals. Because the transfer is labeled a renewal, the new owners bypass mandatory hydrogeological reviews and eliminate the statutory veto power of the local municipal council. This reclassification allowed a $61.2 million private equity asset flip to occur entirely behind closed doors, without an updated environmental assessment. This administrative twist effectively decouples democratic consent from water access, transforming a public extraction permit into a privately tradable grandfathered asset. Federal Indigenous protections under Bill C-37 are strictly confined to reserve boundaries, leaving broader traditional territories unprotected. Because the bill lacks precedence over provincial licensing, communities remain exposed to upstream corporate diversions that drain shared watersheds from outside the reserve. Municipalities face a different kind of pressure. Local governments across Canada are currently managing a $270 billion infrastructure deficit that threatens the integrity of public water systems. Budget 2025 addresses this through the $51 billion Build Communities Strong Fund. However, to access these grants, municipalities must cut local development charges, creating intentional revenue deficits at the local level. These policies maneuver both Indigenous and municipal governments into a financial corner, limiting their ability to fund independent water protection. The federal solution to these municipal budget holes is a requirement to leverage private equity, primarily through the Canada Infrastructure Bank. This creates a pathway for public-private partnerships, where corporate consortiums design, finance, and operate municipal drinking water utilities under long-term concessions. The CETA trade agreement reinforces the structure. It grants European water conglomerates equal standing in domestic utility procurement, making it harder to favor public options. Once a municipality surrenders its water system to a private entity, CETA's investor protection clauses make reclaiming the utility legally challenging and financially prohibitive. This combination of provincial regulatory rollbacks and municipal utility privatization ultimately results in a massive structural wealth transfer. Long-term ecological liabilities, such as aquifer depletion and localized flooding from destroyed wetlands, are socialized onto municipal taxpayers and regional emergency systems. The system has been re-engineered to push environmental risks onto the public, while privatizing the guaranteed yields from water utility operations for institutional bondholders. Because legacy public safety nets have been weakened, households must take active steps to hedge against utility inflation and further privatization. This involves auditing local city council agendas for private utility proposals and monitoring provincial environmental registries to track corporate permit transfers before they bypass public review periods. This financialization isn't limited to freshwater. A similar restructuring is occurring within the asset allocations of Canadian public pension funds.